Street Fighter. Are you worried that I haven't said 2 yet? Street Fighter is definitely a series that, well, introduced us to a lot of memorable characters. We're so used to talking about the meta and mechanics and stuff like that we forget that, yeah, these guys are actually characters with social security numbers. So today I'm going to be talking about the best and worst character from each mainline series game. 2 rules. 1, has to be mainline series games only again, and 2, 1 won't count for the second rule, is that they have to be playable characters. And because 1 only has 1 playable character, that wouldn't be any fair. So, let's start off with 2's best character, SaGa. SaGa is by far the best character in Street Fighter 2 for one simple reason. He becomes such a cool character. Sure, in 2 and 1 he is fine, but when you look into his background, he's actually really complex, starting off as a proud and happy warrior before getting humiliated and scarred for life, literally, by Ryu, and swearing revenge and even joining Shadowloo. Eventually learning that revenge isn't the way to go and that he should challenge Ryu, but it should be in a match of honor, not in a match solely focused on killing him. This amount of depth is reserved for only really good characters. So SaGa, yeah, he's a great character. As for his appearance in Street Fighter 2, he is also one of the strongest characters. The Tiger Shot by far being one of the strongest fireballs in the game, and the most spammable, meaning he's the best zoner. He does lose points for saying the word tiger so many times. Seriously, there were 3 things in arcades that you couldn't get over back in those days. The sound of Dulcim's elephants, the sound of the Daytona USA theme, and this. Tiger! Yeah, pretty annoying. So SaGa is the best. But then, who is the worst? Well, it was a choice between a whole bunch of diamonds, honestly, because Street Fighter 2 just has that good of a cast. But if I was forced to pick one, that would have to go to Fei Long. Again, like I said, all the characters in Street Fighter 2, classic characters. You can't go wrong with them. Heck, I'll even share with you what I love about Fei Long. His Rekka moves are very unique, or at least they were before everybody started copying him. His design is based off of Bruce Lee, which, hey, that's pretty cool. I wish his nunchucks were used in his fight though. And best of all, I like that he's a movie guy, but he's not the typical movie guy. You know, the ones that are so full of themselves that they don't even take the fight seriously. I'm looking at you, Johnny Cage. Yes, Mortal Kombat. I'm looking at you. But Fei Long, yeah, Fei Long's pretty cool. So, why is he the worst? Well, simply because somebody had to be the worst. And it was between him, T-Hawk, and DJ. But T-Hawk would later become a very important character in the lore, literally birthing one of the best characters. And DJ started off as one of the lamest characters. In fact, he was going to be on this spot. But after 6 made him a really cool character, I just had to go with Fei Long. And another reason why I went for Fei Long, I honestly keep forgetting that this guy exists. Like, all the other characters I could name off the top of my head. Not Fei Long, and I can't even tell you why, but it's because of this that Fei Long has to be ranked the worst. Again, nothing against Fei Long, Fei Long is a really cool character. I just wish that, Capcom did more with him. As for the best in the Alpha series, that is a tough one, but I'm gonna have to go with Akuma. I get it, Akuma was technically released back in Street Fighter 2, but in my defense, Akuma wasn't really his own character back then. Heck, he didn't even have a name. This game, on the other hand, gives him a personality. He's a strong warrior who wants to become a demon, but he has an honor code, and he won't kill anybody who won't fight back. So already we've got a really cool character, but then you got the fact that he's a Shoto, but better. Now, of course, Raging Demon, that's a cool move, but he's got other ones, like in-air fireballs, flaming Hadoukens, and of course his teleport. Man, I said that weird. Anyway, this guy is not someone to mess with, but he's also balanced out by the fact that he is a very glass cannon character. I was originally going to give this spot to Dan, but I have to put Kuma here somewhere. And besides, we'll get to see Dan later, don't you worry. But then who is the worst? Well, again, that was a tough one, but I'm gonna have to give it to... That unfortunately goes to Sodom. Or Sodom? I don't know. Basically, this guy is just a guy who really loves Japanese culture. Like, really loves Japanese culture. Only problem is he doesn't know how to speak Japanese. Isn't that goofy? Well, it would be, except one problem. That's literally his entire personality. Yeah, I keep forgetting that Sodom exists. Again, this seems to be a problem with characters that I don't like. Basically, the more forgettable you are, the more I don't like you. In fact, as you're gonna see, I think I like forgettable characters less than I do actually bad characters. Sodom is just one of these examples. He's an example of, I like him, but I also get why he never came back. He's a one-trick pony. Once you have told this joke, you've basically told it all. So, let's move on to 3, because I've already forgotten who we're talking about. Was it Adon? Yeah, I forgot. The leap from Street Fighter 2 to Street Fighter Alpha was like a leap from a 20-car pileup to a 20-car pileup, but everybody gets a cool hat. The leap from Street Fighter Alpha to Street Fighter 3 was from a 20-car pileup, but everybody gets a cool hat, to a huge explosion that cracks nearly the entire Earth. What I'm trying to say is that there was a huge leap between versions of Street Fighter 3 and the Alpha series. Once Third Strike rolled around, there was no going back. Street Fighter was awesome. Now, Street Fighter 3 may have had one issue though. The character roster was completely new, aside from 4 characters, 2 of which being Ryu and Ken, 1 of which being Chun-Li, and the final one being Akuma. But that was it. No other returning characters were coming back. Everyone else was new. And I'm gonna say it, they knocked it out of the park for almost every single one of them. So much so that picking the best was really difficult. Even more so than 2. But in the end of the day, I decided to go with Yuan. Why Yuan? Well, mainly because that's my main in Third Strike. Also because I made an entire video about Yuan. So I could just be that guy and shamelessly plug my video, which you should totally watch after this. But, you know what? I'm just gonna tell you what I love about him anyway. He has a cocky attitude, he has strong attacks, he's a charge character who is actually fun to play as, and Aegis Reflector. Do I need to say anything more than that? Just Aegis Reflector. Do I need to say any more than that? I will if I have to, but I don't think I do. Yuan speaks for himself, so who could possibly be the worst out of this roster? It was no easy feat, but I think I found him. The Hot Topic regular, Remy. Don't tell me that lie I just made up wasn't a stone cold fact. I mean, just look at him. Okay, but in all seriousness, Remy does have a lot of things going for him. His cold blue kick and his flash kick are like Guile, but actually slightly better? Yeah, I think this guy is Guile but better. But what's the problem with him? Well, it's simple. He's a charged character in a game where charging is a bad thing. Ask Yuan. And, well, his story kinda sucks. What I mean is, he is a fighter who hates fighting. No, you did not hear me wrong. I actually said what I meant. He is a fighter who hates fighting. Does that ever get explained or expanded upon? No, it never does. So even though I like to play as Remy, Remy is just the weakest character of them all. In fact, so much so that he's one of the few characters in the mainline series who doesn't get featured in the Udon Street Fighter comic. You know you're a bad character when you can't even get into that. That is pretty sad. So Remy doesn't get to be very good. So let's try and make things more positive with Street Fighter 4. Starting with a character who just oozes positivity, Dan Hibiki. I told you we'd get to this guy soon. Street Fighter 4 has a lot of amazing characters, and Rufus, but Dan Hibiki, yeah, he's just so cool. And by that I mean he's so lame that he ends up being really fun. Like, he's garbage. He's bad. He can't even take a stock off of an unplugged controller. But that means when he does come out a victory, oh man, it feels so good. Also, he just has such a cool energy and charm to him that is unreplicatable. I don't even care if that's a word or not. It's just how Dan is. I mean, just look at these animations. Tell me you don't like Dan. Yeah, Dan was pretty bad when he first released, and I get that's his whole point, but he got better later on. And I would include him in 5, but there's another character I want to talk about in 5, so I'm gonna include him here. But sadly, finding the best character in 4 was difficult, but finding the worst one was, unfortunately, very able. I bet you forgot this guy even existed. You know the drill. If he's forgettable, I don't care about him. But Abel is worse. Mainly because he's supposed to be the main character of this game. Yes, Ryu and SaGa and all the others, they aren't the main characters. Abel is. I bet you completely forgot that. You know why? Because Abel is bland. Like cold oatmeal bland. There is nothing to Abel other than the fact that he is voiced by Jean-Claude Van Damme. Wait. He's voiced by Jean-Claude Van Damme. And he's friends with Guile. Movie reference? Nah, I'm just kidding. They wouldn't go that deep. But seriously, the fact that that weird reference is like the only thing that's actually memorable about Abel says a lot. Abel is so forgettable and is possibly the worst Street Fighter character for that alone. Although, I think there is one that is worse, but we'll get to him shortly. Gil. I finally get to talk about Gil. Oh yeah, I've been waiting for this moment. I was going to do it in the 3 section, but unfortunately you can't play as Gil in 3 unless you use cheats, glitches, or you have a very specific copy on the Dreamcast. Yeah, no thank you. But all I'm saying is, Gil, he's so cool. First off, many people hate the fact that he's half red and half blue and that's about it. Personally, I really like it. I think it's a very cool design, and it stands out amongst the other characters. Yeah, it would be one thing if there were a lot of characters like it, but I think Gil is the only one. It's also really cool that he is sort of a up for debate villain. What I mean is, yeah, he is a villain, but it's up to debate of whether he's evil or not. Because all he really wants to do is lead his people into the promised land. It's just that his methods are terrible, which is a really good setup for a villain. I had to talk about Gil in the Street Fighter V section because not only was this where Gil became a really cool character, but it was also because Gil is not playable in 3, and because I need to talk about one thing. You see, in Street Fighter V, there's this thing called the Crush Counter. And Gil can't do it. In fact, Gil is the only character in the game who can't Crush Counter. Which, yes, is the downside it sounds like. But honestly, I don't care. Gil is just such a cool and fun character that I just don't care. Yeah, if I want to be optimal, I'll just play someone like Ed or Urian. But if I want to have fun, I'll play Gil. But I'll tell you someone who isn't very fun. Something you need to know right away is the fact that Street Fighter V's cast is split right down the middle, in my opinion. Split down the middle between really awesome characters and... ugh. And unfortunately, the ugh are very, very numerous. Now, picking the worst one of them all was really difficult. And I mean really difficult. Because I could have gone with Nikali, who is so wasted that it's not even funny. Charlie, who is so wasted it's not even funny, and he's not like his old self. And I could have gone with Fong, who is Fong. I don't think I need to explain why I don't like him, because nobody likes him. But at the end of the day, I decided to boil all down to Birdie. Because, why Birdie? Well, 2 reasons. One, the first reason, everything I just said, character assassination, where Birdie was a really, I wouldn't say interesting character in the alpha games, where he was kind of bland, but at least he had something going for him. He was a guy who just wanted to be respected, and so joined Shadowloo to be respected. But now he's just boiled down to, I'm big, I'm strong, but I'm also very hungry. That's literally his entire personality. And it's kind of sad. But that wouldn't alone bring him down to the worst character in the game. What does bring him down, though, is the fact that he is really not fun to play as. Yeah, I'm one of the crazy people who actually likes playing as Fong, because at least his gameplay is fun. But Birdie's not even fun. Birdie is boring to play as. Yeah, he's optimal, but there's not much to him, and his V skill is literally the worst V skill in the game. It's RNG based. And then there's the fact that his V trigger is the only way you can actually combo moves into other moves. It's actually really sad. Birdie is just the worst character in the game. Heck, I may even say it right now. Birdie in Street Fighter V may be one of the worst Street Fighter characters of all time. But that only means we can go up from here. Hopefully. There's only one game left, and it was probably the hardest one of them all. I'm not kidding you when I tell you that I Street Fighter 6 was probably the hardest game to pick a character from, because almost all the characters from this game are amazing. And yeah, after the 5 fiasco, this was needed. The worst thing that some characters do is be forgettable, like Manon, but that's about it. And while it's not ideal, it is definitely better than 5, where half the cast was actually terrible. So, who on earth could I have picked? Well, it was a really difficult choice, but I decided to go with JP. JP is by far the darkest villain in Street Fighter history, to the point where he is just, if you've read his lore, you would know just how bad this guy is. This guy basically forced Ken to kill multiple people just to make sure his son was safe, because he was holding his son at gunpoint, essentially. And then he pinned a crime on Ken, and oh man, this guy is just evil. He also has the ability of Psycho Power, and Psycho Power, as we all know, is something reserved for Bison and his bodies. However, it has been confirmed through lore that somehow JP got Psycho Power through some interesting means. Now, it's not confirmed what he used to get this power, but it is theorized. But my theory is he may have absorbed the power from when Bison was defeated. I'm not sure how he did that, but I have a feeling it has something to do with that cane he's wielding. And out of all the Psycho users, all the Psycho Power users, I think he's one of the best. He's basically Falk, but really good. There's nothing to say about JP that hasn't already been said. JP is just an awesome character, but also a character you just despise, and I love him for that. Picking the worst character was even harder than picking the best character, because like I said, all the characters in Street Fighter 6 are bangers, but I had to pick one, and this is probably going to be the most controversial take on the entire list, even more so than the Fei Long one, but here it goes nothing. Well, someone's going to kill me for this. Bison. I think he's the worst character in Street Fighter 6. Again, this is more of a by proxy thing, because I don't think there really is a bad character in Street Fighter 6, and I think all the characters are really good, but, well, there is one character who doesn't feel necessary, and one character who I think could actually ruin the franchise going forward if too much is done with him, that being Bison. Every other character had a really satisfying conclusion or had a new thing going for them, like how Ken is basically recovering from having everything taken from him by JP, or how Ryu is now learning to, well, live a new life. Everything about these characters has either evolved and or come to an end. But Bison's story already came to an end in 5, so why is he back? Why is he resurrected? We already have a new villain who can take his place. Why do we need him back? Again, this is nothing against Bison, and he's only bad in 6. In every other game he's in, Bison's a really awesome character. And in fact, in this game, he's a really awesome character, but he also feels kind of unnecessary. Like, yeah, he's cool and all, he's Bison, but we don't really need him. You don't need him, and that's just sad. Bison is the worst character in 6, but only by proxy. If it were any other way, Bison would actually be one of the best characters in the game. But as of right now, Bison just feels unnecessary to the story of 6. Still though, he has really cool animations. And remember, this list is purely my opinion. If you have your own opinions, please let me know them in the comments below. I'd be happy to read them. And, as always, I have been the Gamer Nerd, and remember this. If an accountant tells you that he's holding a world tournament and he needs a large sum of money, don't trust him.